Hello again, everyone, and thank you for watching our coverage of UFC 216. I'm Ariel Helwani, that is Shaun Al-Shatti. We are standing outside the T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is day one of our coverage, and we just got here to cover the interim lightweight title fight between Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson. Of course, co-main event featuring Demetrius Johnson versus Ray Borg for the flyweight title. But we would be remiss if we don't talk about what's going on in Las Vegas. We have been here plenty times before to cover major mixed martial arts events. We were here back in August to cover the Mayweather-McGregor card, but it feels a little different this time around. Of course, by now you know what happened Sunday evening, less than a mile from where we are standing, right across the street from the Mandalay Bay Event Center, which has hosted many an MMA card. It was the worst mass shooting in American history. As of this point, over 50 people are dead, over 500 are injured, and there is a different kind of vibe in this city right now. The UFC announced the following day, Monday afternoon, that they would proceed with the card. They also announced that they would be donating $1 million to those affected by Sunday night's shooting. And so as we cover this event, it's impossible to ignore what happened on Sunday. We had the media day earlier today, spoke to a lot of the fighters, range of emotions being dealt with from fighters who live in Las Vegas, from fighters who are coming to Las Vegas, some fighting here for the first time in a long time. And so we just wanted to talk about what's going on here as we also tried to prepare you for the fights on Saturday night. Shaun, you had a chance to talk to some of the fighters earlier today. They had the 10 fighters who will be competing on the main card. Before we get into everything, what was the vibe like? How would you describe it?
Somber. I mean, it's just an incredibly somber time in the city, and I think for a lot of us in the MMA community, I mean, Las Vegas is basically a second home. I'm here more than I am anywhere else in the world outside of my own city, and I think that's the same for a lot of fighters and a lot of coaches, and you could sense that today. I think a lot of the fighters were hurting, especially local guys like Evan Dunham or Kevin Lee trains here. It's just a difficult time, and I think that's kind of hanging over everybody. A lot of these guys were here on Sunday when this happened. Tony Ferguson was in Walmart. He wasn't able to leave the Walmart. He had to stay there, and he ended up just not having any idea what was going on, really, and having to text his family back here. Evan Dunham can see the Mandalay Bay from his house. He was up all night. It was a lot of fighters dealing with a range of emotions that I think a lot of people in this city are dealing with. And they say the show goes on, but it's very difficult, I think, for a lot of them to refocus and think about fights and think about these things that seem so trivial now in light of these type of events. But there is going to be a fight on Saturday, and I think a lot of them were having to reconcile that idea of, I do need to stay focused, I do need to stay on whatever tilt I'm on. But it's difficult, and you could definitely sense that from a lot of them.
Before even getting to the media day, you drove in, I flew in to Las Vegas, and I know a lot of it is mental, but just looking around at the airport, there was a very uneasy feeling, a very somber feeling, as you said, and just walking around the Strip. I mean, it's October, it's not a holiday weekend. Often we're here summertime or Memorial Day weekend, July 4th, etc. So this isn't maybe one of the busiest times for Las Vegas, but it does feel very quiet. There's sort of an eerie feeling here. And then when you get to the media day and you talk to some of the fighters, you mentioned Tony Ferguson. He said that his wife and son were going to go to the harvest and then had second thoughts, and he actually got very emotional and choked up. I thought Derek Lewis, who's been battling with so many different emotions over the past month and a half. I mean, he was in Houston for the hurricane, helped so many people there, was trying to prepare for this fight, one of the biggest fights of his career, and then this happens. He gets here and is dealing with the emotions involved with being here in Las Vegas, and he actually admitted that he's having a hard time focusing. He doesn't really know what to feel. He doesn't even know if he wants to fight. He doesn't even, he was kind of surprised that the UFC even went ahead with it all.
So was Tony.
Yeah. And so it's kind of it's hard to digest everything because there's just this range of emotions, and you're kind of looking to the fighters to see how they're digesting it as well.
Absolutely, and it's a real sense of heaviness. Just I think within the city. I think just walking around today, we were able to feel that it's very empty right now. Usually, like you said, we're here for like a festive event, some sort of holiday, and there's a mood within the city that you can feel, some sort of liveliness. and it's just it feels heavy walking around. There's extra security, there's extra police everywhere. The presence is just noticeable, and it's just a constant reminder, I think, for whenever you see it. And it's just difficult, man. It's pretty difficult.
What do you make of the UFC's decision to continue with the event? According to the UFC, some people that I spoke to, they believe this is the first, or will be the first, major event in Las Vegas when it happens on Saturday night. UNLV football is playing, but their game is a little later on in the evening. There's little, shows and stuff here or there, but this would be the biggest and certainly the first one for an MGM property. MGM owns the T-Mobile Arena. What did you make of the decision? Did you think that they would cancel because it was, 6 days later?
I thought for a moment they might on Sunday night, Monday. But now, talking to people within the UFC, talking to fighters especially, the sense that I've gotten is that a lot of them want to use Saturday as some form of pulpit or just platform to just bring some level of positivity to the city. You got a couple local guys competing on this card, and just in general, for everyone to be able to come together as one and kind of celebrate something. Just, again, bring some level of positivity to them, because even within the UFC community themselves, I mean, we won't name names, but there were several staff members of the UFC who were there and who had very immense personal interactions and experiences with this. And it's been difficult just even talking to them and seeing their emotions, and I think for a lot of them just going back to work is some level of distraction. And that's positive as well. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's good that this event is still proceeding. We shouldn't stop everything just because of one person's decision. Yeah.
The UFC, it seems like there's based on the conversation I've had with some people, there's going to be more security. There definitely feels like there's more security.
Oh, absolutely.
You see a lot of police officers in groups of 3. You see a lot more security when we enter the building, right? Checking bags and things like that. It's just kind of hard to escape it all. And so you try to cover the event. You try to talk about Kevin Lee fighting Tony Ferguson and the Conor McGregor, cloud hanging over it all. But it always kind of seems, at least for me right now on day 1 of the coverage, and maybe that will change come Saturday, it kind of feels very hard to ignore it. And I know people at home might feel like, oh, guys, this is supposed to be the escape valve for people, right? Sure. And someone who's overseas, there's things that happen every day all over the world, constantly, like daily, no matter where you are. But this one feels a little more personal. I think I've been here over 40 times over the past 8 years. I've been to the Mandalay Bay. The president was here today. It just feels a little different this time around, and especially to be here to cover a fight, it's hard to just ignore it. And that's why I feel like it's good to sort of talk about it and address it.
Absolutely. And I think, even just speaking to a lot of fighters today off camera, just having conversations with them, a lot of them are admitting that it's just really difficult to even talk about fights right now. Talking about beefs and Twitter beefs and who said what, it just doesn't seem important in a time like this. And so I agree. I think it's just it's a heavy feeling upon the city, but I think it's positive that this is still proceeding as planned, and at least we have something to look forward to on a Saturday where we can just come together and watch some fights and just come together as one.
Yeah, it appears as though the UFC will be honoring the city on Saturday, and expect nothing less. Vegas is very important to the UFC. As we said, it's their home base. You mentioned, putting aside differences and beefs. I thought Tony Ferguson, he's been criticized for maybe being immature and for being a little polarizing. I thought he showed a lot of maturity today in my conversation with him, talking about like what happened with Verdum last week and saying that stuff doesn't really matter. I don't really want to be. This is a guy whose family is here and who's a father now, and we don't often get to talk to these fighters when you strip away that persona, and Ferguson has been accused of having this persona and trying to put on a front a little too much. And so today everyone felt very bare and very open, especially a guy like Derek Lewis, who is kind of a tough guy as well. So it was, I don't know, it felt like an emotional day, and it felt like a day that I think those of us who cover the sport and have been covering the sport for a long time won't forget.
I agree with you 100%. Absolutely.
And so we'll keep covering the event, and we're proud to be here. I think I speak for you and the rest of our team here. I'm proud to be in Las Vegas. I'm proud to be covering the event. I'm happy to be here. Can't deny that it feels different, but we're happy to be here covering the event for all of you. And Hope you've enjoyed the coverage on day one. There's plenty more to come. Open workouts on Thursday, of course, weigh-ins on Friday, the event on Saturday. It will be, as far as our coverage is concerned, business as usual, and we'll try our best to stay on topic. But for day one, just wanted to share with all of you what's going on here and the feeling here and the way the fighters are handling it. And I must say, all the fighters, I thought, in their own way, handled it very well. You know, everyone, I thought, you know, said the right thing, and everyone had the right tone, and it was just really interesting to talk to them about it and almost just share the experience with them as opposed to just asking them questions.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is at this point, with things like these, this is a shared experience.
Yeah.
We are all going through this in one facet or another, some people closer to it than others. And I think that you could feel that today. It felt very communal in that room. There's historically some kind of barrier between athlete and media where it's difficult to get over that barrier because of just what your jobs are, what your jobs entail. But just today it felt like, again, everyone is here experiencing and feeling similar feelings and going and just dealing with them as one. And I think that's at least a nice and very nice thing to, I don't know.
Yeah, and Vegas is coming together, and the UFC's head doctor, Dr. Davidson, I'm told has been very busy, you know, helping out and just being on call for anyone who needs help. Everyone's working 24/7. I've talked to some police officers who told me they're doing, you know, 15, 16-hour shifts here. So Las Vegas is regrouping. Las Vegas is trying its best to move on, and the UFC will be a big part of that on Saturday as it puts on the first major event in this city since Sunday's horrific shooting. We'll be back on Thursday for more coverage of UFC 216. Thank you for watching our coverage on day one. Appreciate you stopping by. Good night from Las Vegas, Nevada.